So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got another great guest from one of my childhood films. Literally, this man was my childhood for many, many years with The Mighty Ducks and many other films. It's Garette Henson. Garette, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
And you know what? I do what I do. I can't even speak. I'll edit this out. I do. My childhood was full of movies because, unfortunately, I didn't go out a lot because I got bullied quite badly when I was younger for a stutter and slightly overweight. So movies was my childhood, and I've got to say, The Mighty Ducks, as well as quite a few of your other movies, literally brought me up in my household. So we're going to speak about some of the great movies that you've been in and also The Mighty Ducks. But before we do, the last 2 years have been quite dramatic, to say the least. How have you kept positive and moving forwards during, this pandemic that we've been in, that hopefully we're seeing, less of? So how have you been kept positive and moving forwards?
Yeah, I'm trying to stay positive. I think it was really a stressful time for everybody, especially in those early months when we didn't really know what it was we were dealing with. And I remember, getting back from the grocery store and literally wiping every item down, with the disinfectant before we brought it into the house. And it was so uncertain. And I think that I was really fortunate because, I've got a family. And so there's just this built-in camaraderie and friendship, and my partner and I and my kids just hunkered down in our place in New York. And as you said, it's similar to your childhood, watched a lot of movies and just spend time with each other. And we live in a small apartment in New York City, but we have a little backyard. I think that was really our saving grace, is to have some outdoor space and just try to have as much fun as possible. As the
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it wasn't easy as well. As you've got a little one, and it's, when it comes down to us, we're quite, we know how to deal with things. So having a child in the family as well, how hard was that? Because kids are quite resilient the best of times, but keeping them busy. I don't know if it was the same over there, but it was quite a lot of homeschooling here. So every parent turned into a teacher for quite a while. How was that, with the family, coping with that, and obviously, trying to occupy your little one during the pandemic?
Yeah, the school through Zoom for my kids was impossible. There was very little being learned. It was nice to get them on a Zoom so that they could see their classmates, and in that regard connect to that community that they were missing so much. But as far as the actual education goes, it was pretty much at zero. I think I'm lucky. My kids are young. They're 5 and 8 now. So in the height of the pandemic, it was more like, 3 and 6. And so there wasn't that much education that they were missing out on. I feel very sympathetic for older kids, junior high kids or high school kids, where they were really at that critical moment of learning. And to miss out on that must have been really detrimental. But yeah, so, there wasn't much education happening. But yeah, they are incredibly resilient. I was really amazed by how quickly the both of them accepted and adapted to wearing a mask every time they left the house, and that very quickly for them just became the new normal. And they were it was actually a bit more of a process getting the mask off of them than getting it on them, especially my younger one. He became so accustomed to wearing it. It almost felt like a disguise or a mask that he hid behind. And for him, there was comfort in wearing that. But prevented him from letting his personality really come out.
Mm.
So by the time it got to a point where they were going back to school, and this year they're in school and they're not wearing masks, I'm really happy about how far we've come.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think, this pandemic has definitely shone a light on, a lot of the positives about humanity and that giant reset button on, kindness and thoughtfulness and how we treat each other. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really nice to see the support around during the pandemic on how nice people were. So, it's really, really nice to see. But let's talk about your... Yeah, go on.
But yeah. Sorry, I agree so much with you with what you're saying. Just one last thought I wanted to add is that I think that during the pandemic, a lot of people started to understand the importance of self-care
Mm,
and taking care of themselves, whether that's 5 minutes of meditation or daily exercise. And really, I think there was like a restructuring as far as priorities go. And I think that as a society, we learned a lot about what's really important. And as things are opening back up and getting back to normal, I really hope that the masses remember those things that they've learned,
mm.
those small things that are so important for yourself. I hope that people hold on to those.
Yeah, and I think that everything that we're going through now, especially with fuel prices and cost of living here in the UK, and I'm sure it's same this, in the States. I think that these challenges are making us more resilient as adults as well, and actually appreciating the little things. So I don't see it as sort of a negative. I see it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to
Mm.
teach our kids, how to be better adults and more thoughtful. But now,
Hmm.
talking about you when you were little, so what pushed you into the career of acting? I mean, you were very young when you
Mm.
started yourself. So
Mm.
what was the thing that pointed you into that direction and pushed you into probably one of the most competitive industries known to man?
Yeah, I know a lot of my peers growing up, other child actors. It was something that they really wanted to do, and they, convinced their parents to get headshots and to help them get an agent and to get them on auditions. And I always really admired that. I think that's so proactive for a young child to see something like that, to want it, and to figure out ways to go after it. That was not me. I was completely born into this. My father was a stage actor, and my mother was a photographer in New York. And I used to just get carried around to auditions with my parents, and that's how I booked my first job. My mom was, as I said, a photographer, a photographer's assistant, and I ended up in one of her prints. And so I started doing baby modeling, and then started doing some commercials, and then eventually film and television. And so by the time I could really remember, it was just something that I was already doing.
Mm.
Um, and it was just sort of yeah, that was just my life, and it was something that I accepted. And it wasn't really until I was older and I went to college that I really stopped and questioned whether it was something that was really for me or not.
Mm. I mean, did you feel like it was hard work when you was younger? Because being a kid, I suppose it's playing a game. I mean, did you feel like it was hard work?
you know, Being on set was never hard work. Being on set was it was a dream. It was absolutely wonderful. I learned so much and I observed so much. And when I would get a role, I would read the script and I would imagine what it was going to look and feel like, and then I'd show up on set and see the choices that the filmmakers had made. And it was just such an interesting process. I was
Mm.
I was really enthralled by all of it, not just the acting, but the camera and production, and how these 70 to 120 people were coming together to bring this project to life. I was really infatuated by it.
Mm.
But with that said, yeah, as a kid, you do feel the pressure of it. you know. I think especially with the auditioning process, there is inherently a lot of rejection involved in that. And then, you know, what's even more tough though is when you get really close, right? There was a few films or TV shows growing up where you get the call back, you go back to meet the director, you go back for the mix and match, and at that point you start to really understand the gravity of the situation, and you know, option A getting it, option B not getting it, and you understand the opportunity that would come with that, be it who you're working with and also the financial, you know, opportunities. So yes, I was aware of the entirety of what I was doing, not just the creative aspect of it, but the business aspect of it. And I think for a child, being aware of the business side of it can be a complicated thing.
I mean, kids often change their minds as often as their socks. So, you know, when you was younger, was there any point where you thought, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. I want to be, you know, I know what kids want to be, like a footballer or something like that. Was there any point in your early career that you thought, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore?
Yes, there was, and it was at a pretty young age. But the thing that I wanted to do was to direct films. So it sort of felt like, even though I knew I wasn't doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, the advantage that I was gaining by acting um, was huge. You know, so I knew that I wanted to be in film, just in a slightly different capacity. So for me to get to be on set and again absorb everything that's going on around me felt like a pretty good trade.
I mean, I've got to say, your early work is fantastic, and you know, you then, you know, come to the attention of you know, the Globe in the Mighty Ducks, because that literally took the world by storm. It really, really did, and it's cemented in our culture to this day, which I think is phenomenal. It really is, for a film that's got so much heart and so much meaning to it. So if you could talk us through how you got the part of Guy Germain on that movie, because that must have been an experience, because you know the cast is just full of kids. So what was that process like, getting the role?
Yeah, so you know, just before I booked the Mighty Ducks, I was in Belgium, and I just started production on this film called Dog of Flandre, and it had Max van Sydow in it, and Ed Harris, and I was going to be the lead role, and it was very exciting. And we got out there, we did the fitting and the table read, and we had gotten, I think, one day in of principal photography, and the producers had a falling out with the director, and suddenly the financing just disappeared. So my family and I were in Belgium, and my two older brothers had been pulled out of school. They were going to do homeschooling for the year because we were going to live in Belgium for 4 months and then travel around Europe. Suddenly that film wasn't happening. So the person who was subletting our place in LA had a place in New York. So we went to New York City, and we were living in New York City in Hell's Kitchen, and really just trying to figure out what we were going to do next as a family. And the Mighty Ducks came along, and I'm sure you know, my brother Eldon Henson is also an actor. And so, like you said, there was a bunch of roles. And so, you know, I think we each read for a couple different roles. And I was up for Charlie for a minute, and then they ended up offering me Guy Germain. And, you know, it was just one of those things where it was the solution we were greatly needed, given our current predicament of being in this weird apartment in Hell's Kitchen. And we really didn't know what this film was or what it was going to be. We were just kind of happy to be moving on to the next thing. And at that point, it was just me who had gotten a role. And Eldon, my brother, was up for Fulton Reed, and Disney ended up passing on him. They said that he wasn't tough enough, and they wanted Jordan Kerner, the producer, to go back to Minnesota and try to cast a local there. So what Jordan ended up doing was flying my brother Eldon to Minnesota and dyeing his hair black and putting a fake scar on his cheek and screen testing him under a different name. And so he did that and sent the audition tape to the execs over at Disney, and they said, yeah, see, great, like this guy's perfect. And Jordan said, well, great, you can have him, but that's actually Eldon, and I just dyed his hair, so, you know, let him act. And so that's how we ended up both getting the role. And for us both to be able to be in the same movie together and travel out to Minnesota, it just solidified itself as just kind of the dream opportunity.
And there you go, a young picture of you. I mean, when you look at pictures like that, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Because, you know, it was such an awesome franchise. It really, really was. And yeah, I mean, we all grow older, unfortunately. But yeah. I tell you what, I mean, you know, when I look back at pictures of me, I'm a lot less grey. You're still looking very, very young. I mean, was it 42 now?
Yes, I am.
So looking very, very young still. And I mean, what is your first impression when you see pictures of yourself in the Ducks outfit?
I mean, I was just so young and so innocent.
I mean, Marguerite did mention, you know, how much fun everyone had at boot camp. And, you know, did you know how to skate before taking on the role? And you know, how fast did you learn? And what was that experience like? Because I couldn't think of anything worse than ice skating. I'm useless. I can ice skate, but I can't stop, which I think is even more hilarious. So how was boot camp for you with the rest of the guys? Did everybody behave? And what was the experience like?
Yeah, I had never really skated before I got the role. Pretty sure I told them that I could. As you know, kids are instructed to say, "Oh yeah, yes, of course, I can ride horses, I can, I can fence, I can, you know." But that was the case with most of the kids. Most of the kids didn't know how to play, and luckily for us, in D1, we were the worst team. Right, we weren't even supposed to be very good, so there wasn't a huge learning curve for us. But yeah, they sent us to a 4-week hockey camp. Before we started principal photography, and it was a blast. We skated, I mean, all day. You know, I think we had like 2 separate ice times of 3 hours, and so we were just on skates all day long for 4 weeks. And I fell in love with the game. I absolutely loved it. I took to it really well, and I ended up playing all through junior high and high school afterwards in Los Angeles. And yeah, you know, it was the boot camp was a lot of fun, as was shooting. You know, they really because there was a whole group of us, they really just wanted us to remain kids and have a lot of fun, and then they did their best to capture that. You know, I've been on other sets as a kid where it was a bit more serious, and you understand that you're an adult in an adult world, and you do your best to be respectful and jump in and do your job when the time comes. But with the Ducks, they really wanted us to be free and to have fun and to just be as natural as possible. So they really let us kind of run wild a bit, and you know, did their best to just corral us. So the shoot was just wonderful.
And the next question is, who was the worst and who was the best skater during boot camp?
I was definitely one of the best. Let's see, Brandon was also very good. You know, when we were shooting, a lot of the crew had also played hockey. So when we would break for lunch, we would often just push the camera gear off to the side and play pickup hockey during lunch break. And, you know, we'd have like Steve Brill, the writer, out there, and the camera up, and the gaffer, just anyone who had skates would throw them on and come out and play a little bit of pickup. And Brandon always put on the goalie gear because we needed a goalie. And we're all endlessly grateful for him for doing that. Who was the worst? I don't know. I mean, you know, like I said, like we didn't have to be very good. So, you know, it didn't matter.
Do you know what? You're so nice saying that, because when I asked Marguerite the same question, hands down, she said Emilio. Emilio was
Ah,
was the worst. But in D1, when you see Emilio on the ice, I am guessing that they used maybe like a stunt ice skater double for some of those scenes, because it's pretty impressive. But to get on the ice and actually ice skate, I think's great anyway. So
yeah. But to that, I would say, when you're 10 years old and you're putting on skates for the first time and practicing for 4 weeks, that's a very different experience
mm,
than being an adult and trying to go through that same process.
kids are
Like you said,
fearless.
kids are so
They don't care.
resilient.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Kids will literally hit that ice, get back up. Adults, I
yeah,
suppose, fear falling down and breaking
yeah.
something. So obviously, the franchise has been around for so many years. Why do you think it has lasted so long and loved by so many?
It's a great question. I have recently watched Ducks One, and I think what really stood out to me as remarkable was the heart.
Mm,
It was really a lot of heart in that story. They threaded that needle of um, being funny and sarcastic and sentimental without being too overly sentimental.
mm.
And it's like a group of kids who end up like really caring and wanting to win. And for me, I think that heart is what really sets it aside.
And what's your fondest memory of working on the whole franchise? I mean, what will always stay with you?
The friendships, because there were three of them that we did. I was 11 in the first one, and I think turning 16 in the last one. And so to get to grow up with these group of kids, and one of them being my brother, uh, was so magical, and
Mm,
the relationship that I have now with Vinny, who played Adam Banks, and Brandon, um, and Sean Weiss, and this
mm,
Marguerite, everybody, like, they really are my family,
mm,
and I've really come to appreciate that more and more the older that I get.
mm.
Um, so yeah, it's the companionship.
And I've got to say, everyone secretly hates a reunion because, you all get back together and straight away, you're worried about how you look. You're worried about if you've lived your life well enough. But you guys had a reunion on Game Changers, which I've got to say is
Mm,
fantastic. I've got a picture here of you guys all together on the ice, which
nice.
I think is fantastic. I mean, what was that experience like? Because again, the new show's fantastic. It's in the second season at the moment, but I love the fact that we saw the OG players come back, which I think's awesome. What was it like getting back on the ice in those uniforms? After so many years.
Putting on the uniform was surreal. That felt very strange. I felt like I was being transported back to another time in my life. Um, but getting to see everybody was really special. Getting to see Steve Brill, who wrote the original Mighty Ducks, to be with him on set again
Mm,
was so much fun. And for me, the big win with that was getting to see Emilio, because he's someone who I haven't seen since we shot Mighty Ducks 3. And a lot of these other cast members I've gotten to see over the years, but with him, it had been a lifetime. And so to get to hang out with him again and catch up, and for me as an adult, to to see that he was just as amazing and kind as I remembered him to be during my childhood, was really meaningful. He's a really kind person.
mm.
And he was really, really good to us kids on the Mighty Duck sets. And so to get to see him again and catch up was really, really nice. And
Which
yes, to your point, the show
mm,
is fantastic.
mm,
When it
yeah.
came out, I really enjoyed it.
And did you give any of the cast members any advice? Any of the newbies to the business?
Yeah, I mean, they were really sweet. They were really excited to meet us, and uh, you know, if I did give any advice, it was just to be grateful for the experience,
Mm.
and take it in.
Mm. I mean, talking about Emilio, because obviously at the time of filming Mighty Ducks, Emilio was at the height of his career. I mean,
Mm.
did you realize who he was? Did you know that you were sharing the screen with such an established, well-known Hollywood star at the time?
Yeah, I did. I did. I mean, Young Guns had already come out, right?
Mm.
Young Guns I loved as a kid.
Mm.
Um, but those things don't hold the same weight when you're a kid. Like, yeah, I
Mm.
knew that he was, an important actor, but uh, at least for me, those kinds of things didn't phase me as a child the same way that they would now.
Mm.
Um, and I think especially because he was so generous, that's not how he held himself. He's the type of actor who knows everybody's name. When he shows up on set, it takes him 20 minutes to get from the car to his trailer because he's stopping and having a quick chat with every person that he comes across. He's very humble and very kind. So that's who he became to me
Mm.
very quickly over the celebrity.
Which is really nice to hear, because Emilio is one of my idols. I just think he's fantastic in anything that he's in. So it was really nice for him to come back for season 1 of Game Changers. I just thought it was
Mm,
awesome to see him many years
mm.
later taking on the role of Bombay again. But did you manage to swipe any souvenirs from any of the movies?
Yeah, I've got, of course, all my jerseys. The original Ducks jersey, the District 5 jersey, and as well as the Junior Olympics jersey. I've got more hockey gear stuffed in my mom's basement than I know what to do with. um, and what I really wish I had was, you know, the wardrobe lady always made me wear this really silly hat. At the time, I despised it. I there Me and some of the other cast would joke that the wardrobe lady doesn't like me for some reason, and that's why she dresses me the way that she does. Uh, but now, as an adult, and because I have a different perspective on all of that stuff, and I'm just so honored to have been in a film that stood this test of time, and I'm really proud of being a part of this franchise. I really wish I had that ridiculous hat.
Well, if anyone out there, I mean, the sponsors of my show, which are Prop Store, they deal with screen use props and costumes. So
Mm,
I can always put the word out and see if we can track that hat down. And who knows? Who knows? You might see
it
it
would be the
once again
best.
one day. I asked Matt this same question because it always fascinates me with child actors continuing in the business. So you've been in this massive franchise. How difficult is it
Mm.
to leave a massive franchise, being 16, as you said, and to continue in the industry with the amount of expectations on your shoulders, to make it big? How much pressure did you feel leaving this franchise going forwards in this career?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't feel that much pressure because for me it was I'm going to go to college.
Mm.
And when I go to college, that's basically going to be it for me with acting. I'm going to start to figure out how I want to come back into it as an adult from a different perspective and try to get more involved in production. Um, but, it's really difficult to have success as a kid. And
Mm.
I certainly wasn't, the most successful or most famous child actor, but um, I did book a lot of things, and I made enough money to put myself through college and help support my family, and um, you know then going into my 20s where life is just hard, right? And you're
Mm.
trying to find your way, and you're knocking on doors and they're not opening. And I remember in my 20s having this worry that the most successful time of my life was behind me, and I
Mm,
was 24, and that was tough. That was a lot to wrap my head around. Um, and I think for people who want to continue acting, kids who are child actors who want to make that transition into adult acting and are grinding away and and not getting the responses they want. Um, I've seen that happen, and
mm,
that's really difficult,
mm,
to sort of go from booking all the time, and then suddenly you're 20 and no one's returning your calls, and
mm,
that's got to be really tough.
mm,
Uh, and then there's those few who are able to make that transition. I worked with Elijah Wood and Huck Finn when I was a kid, and he's had a beautifully impressive
mm.
career as an adult, and as has Josh Jackson and Kenan Thompson and my brother Eldon. And so that's kind of the best case scenario when people are able to make that transition.
Mm.
Um, but it can be hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose it's the expectations. But again, I mean, being 20 odd, I suppose the world is your oyster still on what you want to do. I mean, with your kids, I mean, have they shown any aspirations to go into acting, or is that something that you would rather them not do?
Um, Aside from acting in a project that I'm making, that is not an option for them. Like no, they wouldn't be allowed to do that. Nor do I think they would want to.
Okay.
Um, my boys are quiet and shy and a little introverted, and those are things that I really cherish about them.
Mm,
And I wouldn't want to force them to do something that would make them uncomfortable. And I think
mm,
for them, I
mm.
think being in front of a camera and lights and a bunch of people, I think that would make them uncomfortable.
I mean, looking at your body of work, like I mentioned earlier on, literally a lot of the films and projects that you've been involved with was literally my upbringing. There's one movie, definitely,
Mm.
that affected me when I was younger. Literally, I could not sit on a toilet seat for at least a month. And I'm not talking about Casper the Friendly Ghost. I'm talking about Arachnophobia. Because this
Mm.
film, I'm going to put a poster up. In the UK, it had a PG rating, which is parental guidance. My dad used to let me
Mm.
watch PGs without even looking at the movies. I mean, this is one of
Hmm.
the most scariest films I've ever seen in my whole life. Move aside Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. So, what was the experience like working on Arachnophobia? Because was it as scary to work on than it is to watch?
That was one of the most fun times I had as a kid on set. That movie was well, first of all, it was huge. It was a
Mm-hmm.
huge movie. Going into it, Steven Spielberg was producing, and Jeff Daniels was acting in it. It was a really big budget, and when I showed up on set for the first day, I saw that. I saw how many trailers there were. Holding all the equipment, and just how big that crew size was, and you felt like you were a part of a really big machine. And so it was humbling to see that. As far as the spiders go, they did a really great job preparing everybody. We had to go to a spider orientation to get familiar with the spiders. And so on the first day it would be one of the bigger spiders in a plastic bag on the end of a stick. And then the next time you come back, it's just the spider on the end of a stick. And then it's the spider in the plastic bag, and you're holding the plastic bag. And then eventually you're just letting the spider crawl on you. And so through this like slow conditioning process, you became familiar with the way that the spider moves and felt more comfortable anticipating what was going to happen. And so it really became just this normal thing. There's one scene in the movie where we all the little baby spiders have hatched, and they're taking over the whole house, and we're running up the stairs to try to climb out the window. And so for that shot, they brought in hundreds of spiders, and they just placed them on the walls and throughout the house, and everybody cleared frame, and they yelled action, and we did the shot. They called cut, and everyone just came running in, and they had those big like 5-gallon buckets, like from Home Depot type of thing, like a painter's bucket, and everyone was just grabbing spiders and dropping them into the buckets and trying to help out. And that's just sort of how it became. It just became a very regular practice. But I'm pretty sure that they lost hundreds of those spiders on the Universal lot, because when they yell cut, the spiders would scamper and grab
see that's the difference with movies made back then, because now it would sadly be all CGI and you wouldn't see a spider in sight.
Absolutely.
So they were the good old days, and they don't make movies like that, or the Mighty Ducks, or all the others, today. I mean, I don't know if it's nostalgia for me, but I've got to say, absolutely love Arachnophobia. I've only watched it once, because I only needed to watch it once. I'm not going to watch it again. My girls are petrified of spiders, because it's that time of the year at the moment where it's very cold and damp outside, so all the spiders are coming into the house. So my kids scream the house down every time they see a spider. So then I've got to man up and be the proper dad and get rid of it. But secretly I'm screaming inside like a little girl. I really, really am. But apparently they're remaking Arachnophobia. So,
is that right?
Yeah, they are. It's slated. It's pre-production as we speak.
Okay.
Would you like to do a cameo in that movie?
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, that's another one, like you said, that's a huge movie, and another one that I'm really proud to have been a part of back then. And yeah, in this world of reboots, it certainly makes sense that they would remake that one. And yeah, of course I'd want to be a part of it.
And I wanted to just quickly touch on a show that I used to watch at my nan's on a Sunday afternoon, and it was one of my favourite shows. I thought he was actually real. We're talking about Michael Landon in Highway to Heaven, which I just thought was a magical, again, full of heart. It was just an awesome show, and you appeared in 2 episodes of that show. What was that like to work with that man? Because literally he commands the screen. It just seems like such an amazing man. I mean, what was that experience at such a young age like?
Yeah, even then I felt like I was in the presence of somebody special. He was really one of the kindest people I've ever met. And it was really interesting coming onto his set. All of his crew members, certainly at least all the department heads, were like in their 60s and 70s, because they'd been with him since Bonanza.
Wow.
He's one of those filmmakers who, when he finds someone that he gels with, he just wants to hang on to that person. And so his crew really was like a family. And so being on his set was very, very harmonious and calm and peaceful. And yeah, I count myself lucky having met Michael Landon. I really do. He was so wonderful to me, and as you said, I got brought back for another episode, so I became very familiar with him, and it was really special getting to know him.
And then we've got to talk about conventions, because literally this December, Wales Comic Con, but it's not in Wales, it's actually in Telford. They moved, but it's a fantastic venue. I go twice a year as press, and I think it's just one of the best conventions that there is in the UK. I really do. And I've got a picture just here. I think just there we go, coming up on the screen.
Nice.
So you're going to be joining some fellow castmates. What are you looking forward to the most about this convention, which is happening on the 3rd and 4th of December with Wales Comic Con?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to a convention outside of the U.S. before,
Oh.
so it will be really interesting to meet fans of the movie that are outside the U.S. It still kind of blows my mind that it's had any kind of like global success, and so it'll be really interesting to get to meet people from the UK or all over Western Europe and talk about the film.
Mm.
Um, you know, coming out to these things, really honestly, the best part is talking to the fans. It really is meaningful and impactful to hear people's story about how that movie resonated with them, and getting to have those conversations really, you know, as an artist and a storyteller, kind of just like fills you up in a really special way.
And you're being joined by some awesome castmates. I mean, Matt Doherty that I had on the show the other week, which I don't know if you've caught his play yet that he's doing, which is Brothers Play, which is on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of actually watching it, so he sent me a link to the actual the video of the play, and it's just an awesome play.
Cool.
It really is. And Marguerite, of course, being on the show, awesome guests like yourself and Matt. You're all going to be there, even Sean Wise, and it's just going to be great. I cannot wait. I'm expecting to see lots of Duck jerseys to be signed. I mean, what's the most common thing that you sign? Is it the jerseys, or is it pucks? Is it the sticks?
Yeah, I would say that the jerseys are the things that we sign the most, and then of course photographs, and yeah. To your point, I mean, I getting together with all these castmates is going to be a lot of fun, and yeah, you know, Matt Doherty, I haven't seen that play, but I've read several drafts of it and given him notes over the years, and I've sent him stuff of mine that he's given me notes on, and so yeah, to get to be with these guys and go out and grab a dinner will be wonderful.
And unlike Game Changers, you won't have to quarantine for a while, because you had to quarantine for quite a while before filming your reunion appearance on Game Changers. So the great thing is the UK, with the pandemic, it's near enough gone, which is great. Conventions are back up and running. People, as you said, are taking care of themselves and being thoughtful with testing before going out and going to conventions, which is great. But no, I mean, looking back, I forgot to mention Adidas. I don't know if you've seen, but Adidas are doing a 30th anniversary collection for the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to be doing a Hawks jersey, the Ducks jersey, and some trainers to celebrate the 30th anniversary. It makes us feel all old that it's 30th anniversary. I was thinking this the other day, looking at like films from my childhood, thinking, oh dear, you know, it's going back too many years. It really is. So the last question I wanted to ask before I bid you farewell, it was from actually one of Marguerite's shows, which is Wet Hot American Summer, which I think's awesome. There's a line in that show, and the line is, if your life was a movie, what title would it have? So if your life, Garrett, was a movie, what title would it have?
Jeez. I don't know. Gratitude.
Excellent, Garrett. You've been a great guest. It's been an honor to have you on. And, you know, I'm looking forward to all the photo shoots at Wales Comic Con and meeting you in person. I'll be down there, maybe with a jersey,
Nice.
a puck, a stick. I don't know. I haven't decided yet what to get signed. So I'm sure I'll decide before December. But thank you so much. Keep safe and stay super, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you in person.